Have you ever caught yourself smiling when you didn't really mean it? That polite curve of your lips during an uncomfortable conversation. The practiced grin you wear when someone compliments something you secretly despise. Or the bright expression you flash when you're actually drowning inside? Most of us dismiss these moments as simple social courtesy, harmless little performances we put on to keep the peace. But to Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in psychology, your smile was never just a smile. It was a window into the deepest, most hidden parts of your psyche, a complex symbol that could either reveal your authentic self or serve as the perfect mask to conceal it. Jung believed that nothing about human behavior was accidental, especially something as universal and powerful as a smile. Every expression on your face, every micro-movement of your lips, every genuine laugh or forced chuckle carries profound psychological meaning. Your smile doesn't just communicate to others, it communicates something essential about the relationship between your conscious mind and the vast, mysterious realm of your unconscious. It reveals the ongoing battle between who you really are and who you think you need to be to survive in this world. What if I told you that the way you smile, when you smile, why you smile, and how authentic that smile really is, could unlock secrets about your personality that you've never consciously recognized? What if your smile has been quietly betraying your deepest fears, your hidden resentments, your suppressed desires, and even your most authentic joys? Jung would say that learning to read the hidden language of your own expressions is one of the most powerful tools for psychological growth you could ever possess. In this exploration, we're going to journey into Carl Jung's revolutionary understanding of facial expressions, particularly the profound and complex world of the smile. We'll uncover how your smile functions as both a bridge and a barrier between your inner world and the external reality you navigate every day. Jung's insights reveal that behind every expression lies an entire psychological landscape, one filled with archetypes, shadows, personas, and the eternal human struggle to become whole. But before we dive deeper into this fascinating territory, if you're someone who craves authentic self-knowledge and isn't afraid to look beneath the surface of everyday behavior, consider subscribing to our channel. We regularly explore the hidden dimensions of offering insights that go far beyond surface-level self-help. By joining our community, you're connecting with others who understand that true growth requires courage, the courage to see yourself as you really are, not as you pretend to be. Now, take a moment to think about your own smile. When was the last time you smiled and truly meant it? When was the last time you smiled and felt like you were wearing a mask? These aren't casual questions. They're invitations into a deeper understanding of your own psychological architecture. Jung believed that most people live their entire lives unconscious of the complex forces operating beneath their everyday expressions. But once you begin to see what's really happening behind your smile, you'll never look at yourself, or others, the same way again. The revolutionary insight that Jung brought to psychology was his understanding that human beings are not simple, unified creatures. We are multiplicities, complex beings containing conscious and unconscious elements, light and shadow aspects, authentic impulses, and protective masks. Your smile exists at the intersection of all these psychological forces. It's where your conscious intentions meet your unconscious motivations, where your authentic self encounters your social conditioning, where your inner child bumps up against your adult persona. Jung spent decades studying what he called the persona, the mask we wear in social situations. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a psychological reality that shapes how we present ourselves to the world every single day. Your smile is one of the primary tools of your persona, carefully crafted to create specific impressions on others while simultaneously concealing aspects of your true nature that you've learned are unacceptable or dangerous to reveal. But here's where it gets fascinating. Jung discovered that this social mask, while necessary for functioning in society, can become so habitual that we lose touch with what lies beneath it. We can become so skilled at performing the appropriate smile for each situation that we forget what our authentic expression actually feels like. We smile to gain approval, to avoid conflict, to manipulate outcomes, to hide pain, to project a success. And gradually, these performed smiles begin to feel more real than our genuine emotional responses. Think about the last time you were in a social gathering where you didn't really want to be. Notice how your face automatically arranged itself into what you thought was the appropriate expression. Notice how that smile felt different from the one that spontaneously appears when you're alone and something genuinely delights you. Jung would say that the difference between these two expressions reveals something profound about the split between your conscious and unconscious mind. The conscious mind produces the socially appropriate smile, calculated, controlled, designed to achieve specific social outcomes. But the unconscious mind generates the authentic smile, spontaneous, unguarded, emerging from genuine emotional experience. Most people live primarily in the realm of conscious, calculated expressions, rarely accessing the deeper authenticity that Jung believed was essential for psychological health. What makes this even more complex is Jung's discovery of what he called the shadow, those aspects of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or pushed into the darkness of our unconscious mind. The shadow doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. Instead, it finds ways to express itself, often through subtle contradictions in our facial expressions that others can unconsciously detect even when we're not aware of them ourselves. Have you ever met someone whose smile made you feel uncomfortable, even though you couldn't explain why? Jung would say you were picking up on the shadow elements leaking through their conscious expression. Maybe their mouth was smiling, but their eyes remained cold. Maybe their smile was too bright, too perfect, revealing an underlying desperation for approval. Maybe something in their expression suggested they were performing, rather than genuinely connecting. This ability to detect authenticity in others' expressions appears to be hardwired into human psychology. We evolved as social creatures who needed to quickly assess whether others' intentions were genuine or deceptive. Jung understood that our unconscious minds are constantly reading these subtle signals, even when our conscious minds remain oblivious to what we're detecting. The implications of this are staggering. It means that every time you interact with another person, your unconscious mind is engaged in a complex process of reading their authentic emotional state while simultaneously managing your own expression to create the impression you want to make. Most of this happens below the threshold of conscious awareness, but it profoundly shapes every relationship you have. Jung believed that becoming conscious of these unconscious processes was the key to psychological freedom. When you begin to notice the difference between your performed smiles and your authentic expressions, when you start to recognize how your shadow elements might be contradicting when you become aware of how your persona has been shaping your interactions, that's when real transformation becomes possible. This isn't about judging yourself for having a social mask. Jung understood that the persona serves important functions in helping us navigate complex social environments. The problem arises when the mask becomes so rigid and unconscious that it cuts us off from our authentic emotional experience. When we lose the ability to distinguish between our performed expressions and our genuine feelings, we become strangers to ourselves. The journey toward authentic expression begins with awareness. It starts with paying attention to the quality of your own smile, noticing when it feels genuine versus when it feels like a performance. It involves becoming curious about what emotions you might be suppressing or what aspects of yourself you've learned to hide behind socially acceptable expressions. In the sections ahead, we'll explore how Jung's understanding of psychological integration can transform not just how you smile, but how you experience yourself and relate to others. We'll discover how authentic expression serves as a pathway to what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming your whole, integrated self, rather than a collection of social masks and unconscious reactions. But Jung's exploration of the smile goes even deeper than the tension between authentic and performed expressions. He discovered that within each of us lives what he called the inner child, a psychological archetype that represents our original unguarded self before the world taught us to hide behind masks. The smile of the inner child carries a completely different quality than the calculated expressions of our adult persona. It's spontaneous, unfiltered, and carries an energy that others can feel even from across a room. When you watch young children smile, you're witnessing something that most adults have forgotten how to access. There's no agenda behind their expression, no hidden calculation about how their smile might be received or what it might accomplish. It emerges directly from their immediate experience of joy, wonder, or delight. Jung believed that reconnecting with this quality of authentic expression was essential for psychological healing and genuine happiness. The tragedy, according to Jung, is that most of us learn to suppress this natural authenticity very early in life. We discover that certain expressions get us approval while others lead to rejection or punishment. Gradually, we internalize these lessons, learning to monitor and control our facial expressions to maximize social acceptance and minimize emotional risk. The spontaneous smile of the inner child gets buried beneath layers of social conditioning. This process isn't necessarily conscious or malicious. Parents, teachers, and society as a whole often believe they're helping children by teaching them appropriate social behavior. But Jung recognized that something precious gets lost in this process: our connection to immediate, unguarded emotional experience. The smile becomes a tool rather than an expression, a strategy rather than a spontaneous response to life. What's particularly fascinating is how this conditioning affects not just how we express ourselves to others, but how we relate to our own emotional experience. When we habitually suppress authentic expression, we begin to lose touch with the feelings that would naturally generate genuine smiles. We become disconnected from our own sources of joy, wonder, and spontaneous delight. Jung observed that many people seek therapy not because they're experiencing too much emotion, but because they've become numb to their own emotional landscape. They go through the motions of happiness, wearing the appropriate expressions for each social situation, but feeling increasingly empty inside. The performed smile becomes a prison that cuts them off from authentic joy. This is where Jung's concept of the shadow becomes particularly relevant to understanding facial expressions. The shadow contains not just the negative aspects of ourselves that we've rejected, but also positive qualities that we've suppressed because they didn't fit our social environment. For many people, spontaneous joy, childlike wonder, and unguarded enthusiasm have been pushed into the shadow because they were deemed inappropriate or unsafe to express. When someone has spent years suppressing their natural capacity for authentic delight, their shadow becomes filled with unexpressed vitality. This suppressed energy doesn't disappear. It finds ways to leak out, often in ways that feel confusing or contradictory. You might notice someone whose conscious expressions seem controlled and appropriate, but there's something restless or hungry in their eyes. That's the shadow calling for recognition and integration. The path back to authentic expression isn't simply about letting go of social masks entirely. Jung understood that we need some degree of social adaptation to function in complex human communities. The goal isn't to eliminate the persona, but to develop a conscious relationship with it, to choose when to wear the mask and when to let it drop, rather than becoming unconsciously identified with it. This conscious relationship with your own expressions requires developing what Jung called psychological awareness. It means noticing the quality of your own smile in different situations. When does it feel forced or mechanical? When does it emerge naturally from genuine feeling? What happens in your body when you smile authentically versus when you're performing for social effect? Many people discover that they've become so habituated to performed expressions that accessing authentic feeling requires conscious practice. They've spent so long monitoring their faces for social appropriateness that they've lost touch with the internal sensations that generate genuine smiles. Jung would say this represents a split between the conscious and unconscious mind that needs healing through awareness and integration. One of the most powerful aspects of Jung's approach is his recognition that healing this split doesn't require dramatic external changes. It begins with subtle shifts in awareness, noticing when your expression feels authentic versus performed, paying attention to what emotions you might be suppressing, becoming curious about what your inner child wants to express but has learned to hide. As you develop this awareness, something remarkable begins to happen. The gap between your internal experience and external expression starts to narrow. Your smile becomes less of a social strategy and more of a direct communication from your authentic self. Others begin to respond differently to you, though they might not be consciously aware of what's changed. They sense something more genuine in your presence. Jung discovered that authentic expression has a contagious quality. When someone allows their real emotions to show through their face, it gives others unconscious permission to drop their own masks slightly. Genuine smiles create an atmosphere where others feel safer to be authentic themselves. This is why some people seem to naturally create environments where others feel more relaxed and genuine. They've learned to express themselves with less persona interference. But this journey toward authentic expression isn't always comfortable. As you begin to let your real emotions show more readily, you might discover feelings you've been suppressing for years. Sometimes, the authentic expression isn't a smile at all. It might be sadness, anger, or grief that's been hidden beneath performed happiness. Jung understood that true emotional health requires feeling and expressing the full spectrum of human experience, not just the socially acceptable emotions. This is where many people get stuck. They want to access more authentic joy and spontaneous delight, but they're not willing to feel and express the more difficult emotions that have been suppressed along with the positive ones. Jung taught that the psyche operates as an integrated system. You can't selectively suppress only certain emotions without affecting your overall capacity for authentic expression. The smile becomes a barometer for this psychological integration. As you become more comfortable feeling and expressing difficult emotions appropriately, your capacity for genuine joy and spontaneous delight naturally increases. The performed smile gradually gives way to expressions that emerge directly from your immediate emotional experience. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it's not a linear process. You might find yourself moving back and forth between authentic and performed expressions as you navigate different social situations and internal emotional states. Jung emphasized that psychological growth is a lifelong journey rather than a destination to be reached. What changes is your relationship with your own expressions. Instead of being unconsciously controlled by social conditioning, you begin to have choices about how and when to express yourself authentically. The persona becomes a tool you can consciously use when appropriate, rather than a prison that cuts you off from your genuine emotional experience. In the final part of our exploration, we'll discover how this journey toward authentic expression connects to Jung's broader vision of psychological wholeness and what he called the individuated life. We'll explore practical ways to begin recognizing and integrating the hidden meanings behind your own smile, and how this seemingly simple shift in awareness can transform not just how you express yourself, but how you experience life itself. The integration of these psychological insights leads us to what Jung considered the ultimate goal of human development: individuation. This is the process by which we become whole, integrated beings, rather than collections of unconscious reactions and social masks. Your smile becomes a powerful indicator of where you are in this journey toward psychological wholeness. Jung observed that individuated people carry a different quality in their expressions. Their smiles don't feel desperate for approval or calculated for effect. There's a groundedness to their presence, a sense that they're expressing themselves from an integrated center, rather than from fragmentary parts of their personality competing for control. This doesn't mean they're always happy or that they smile constantly. Rather, when they do smile, it carries the weight of authentic feeling. The individuated smile emerges from what Jung called the self, the archetype of wholeness that represents our complete psychological potential. This is different from the ego-driven expressions we've been discussing. The ego smiles to get something, to avoid something, to create an impression. The self smiles from being, from the simple recognition of life's inherent goodness, or absurdity or beauty. People who have done significant inner work often report that their relationship with their own facial expressions changes dramatically. They become less concerned with how their smile appears to others and more interested in whether it accurately reflects their internal experience. This shift from external validation to internal alignment marks a crucial stage in psychological development, but Jung warned against romanticizing this process. The journey toward authentic expression isn't about becoming perpetually cheerful or spiritually transcendent. Sometimes the most authentic expression isn't a smile at all. Sometimes genuine presence requires showing up with grief, with anger, with confusion, with the full spectrum of human emotional experience. The individuated person has learned to trust their emotional responses rather than constantly monitoring them for social appropriateness. Their face becomes a more accurate reflection of their inner landscape, which paradoxically makes them more trustworthy and magnetic to others. We're drawn to people whose expressions seem to emerge from a genuine place, even when those expressions aren't conventionally pleasant. This brings us to one of Jung's most profound insights about authenticity. It's not about perfection or constant positivity. It's about congruence, the alignment between your inner experience and outer expression. When someone's smile matches their emotional state, when their expressions flow naturally from their immediate experience rather than from calculated social strategies, they radiate a quality that others find deeply attractive and calming. The practical implications of these insights are enormous. Once you begin to recognize the difference between your authentic and performed expressions, you gain access to information about your psychological state that was previously unconscious. Your smile becomes a tool for self-awareness rather than just a social strategy. Start paying attention to the quality of your expressions throughout the day. Notice when your smile feels forced or automatic. What's happening internally in those moments? What emotions might you be suppressing or avoiding? What would happen if you allowed your face to reflect your actual feeling state more accurately? This isn't about abandoning social courtesy or becoming inappropriately emotional in professional settings. It's about developing a more conscious relationship with your own expressions. You might discover that many of your performed smiles are unnecessary, that people respond better to honest presence than to artificial pleasantness. Jung believed that this kind of psychological awareness was essential for genuine relationships. When you're constantly performing expressions that don't match your internal state, you're essentially lying with your face. Others pick up on this incongruence unconsciously, creating a subtle sense of distrust or disconnection, even in seemingly pleasant interactions. The healing of this split between inner experience and outer expression often begins with small experiments in authenticity. Instead of automatically smiling when someone approaches, try simply being present and allowing whatever expression feels natural to emerge. Notice what happens in your body when you stop performing and start being. Many people discover that their authentic expressions are far more varied and interesting than their performed ones. The performed smile tends to be generic, designed to be universally acceptable. But authentic expressions carry your individual way of experiencing and responding to life. This uniqueness is what Jung valued most about the individuated person. They're not trying to be like everyone else or to fit into prescribed social categories. Their expressions emerge from their particular psychological makeup, their specific life experiences, their individual way of being in the world. The smile of an individuated person often carries what Jung might call a quality of presence. It's not trying to accomplish anything beyond expressing what's actually happening in that moment. This kind of expression has tremendous power because it's rooted in reality rather than in fantasy about how things should be. As you develop this capacity for authentic expression, you might notice that your relationships begin to change. People who were attracted to your performed persona might feel less comfortable with your authenticity, while others who resonate with your genuine self will be drawn closer. This can be temporarily unsettling, but Jung viewed it as an essential part of psychological growth. The individuated person learns to value quality over quantity in relationships. They'd rather have a few connections based on authentic recognition than many relationships built on social performance. Their expressions become more selective. They smile when they genuinely feel moved to smile, not when they think they should. This selectivity, paradoxically, makes their expressions more powerful. When someone who doesn't smile automatically suddenly breaks into genuine delight, others pay attention. The authentic expression carries more weight because it's not competing with constant social noise. Jung's vision of psychological wholeness includes the integration of what he called the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposites in creative tension rather than splitting them into good and bad categories. Your smile can reflect this integration when it emerges from a place that includes both your light and shadow aspects, both your joy and your sorrow, both your certainty and your confusion. The integrated smile doesn't deny difficulty or pretend everything is fine. Instead, it emerges from a deeper acceptance of life's inherent complexity. It might carry traces of sadness along with joy, or humor along with pain. This multidimensional quality makes authentic expressions far more interesting and relationally nourishing than one-dimensional performed ones. Perhaps most importantly, Jung understood that becoming conscious of these psychological processes was itself transformative. Simply noticing the difference between your authentic and performed expressions begins to shift your relationship with your own emotional experience. You start to value what's real over what's socially strategic. Your smile becomes a pathway back to yourself, a way of reconnecting with the spontaneous, unguarded aspects of your nature that may have been buried under years of social conditioning. Each time you choose authentic expression over performance, you strengthen your connection to your genuine emotional life. The hidden meaning of your smile, according to Jung, is ultimately about the relationship between your conscious and unconscious mind, between your social self and your authentic nature, between who you think you should be and who you are. Learning to read this hidden language opens doorways to psychological freedom that most people never imagined possible. As you move forward from this exploration, remember that the goal isn't to eliminate all social masks or to become inappropriately emotional in every situation. The goal is consciousness, the ability to choose when to wear the mask and when to let it drop, when to smile from social courtesy, and when to smile from genuine feeling. Your face is constantly communicating information about your psychological state, both to others and to yourself. By becoming more aware of what your expressions are actually saying, you gain access to a powerful tool for self-understanding and authentic relationship. The smile you thought was just a simple social gesture reveals itself as a complex symbol carrying the deepest truths about your inner life. Jung would remind us that this journey toward authentic expression is not a destination, but a lifelong process of becoming more consciously yourself. Each genuine smile, each moment of authentic presence, each choice to express what's real rather than what's expected, these are small acts of psychological courage that gradually transform not just how you appear to others, but how you experience yourself and your place in the world. The hidden meaning of your smile ultimately points toward the hidden meaning of your life, the ongoing dance between mask and authenticity, between social adaptation and genuine self-expression, between who you've learned to be and who you truly are. In learning to smile from the depths of your authentic being, you reclaim not just your face, but your